I had the great opportunity to visit with members from all three of the congregations here today during the week before Memorial Day weekend. At that time, I invited each congregation to talk a little bit about their welcoming status and pride today. It was a joy to me that all three congregations answered the question, "Are you a welcoming congregation?" with a matter-of-fact response, "Of course." It's especially important to be welcoming now, as some of you said during Joys and Concerns today, to be welcoming as people who hold transgender, non-binary, or gender fluid and non-conforming identities are at serious risk in this country. Politicians like Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, puts the trans community at risk by promoting hateful language. For him, people have to fit in two tiny little boxes, which we know are artificially and socially constructed. He said in May that students and teachers in the Sunshine State schools will never be forced to declare pronouns. "We're not doing the pronoun Olympics," he declared. Really? Is it really so hard? Oh, look, someone lost their cell phone. I hope they come back for it. I guess it's just too hard for him. But it's even worse than that. It's harming a person's dignity by ignoring their pronouns or misgendering. Think about the way you would feel if someone deliberately said, "You don't matter." And it's worse than that. It's healthcare and safety. Here in Ohio, the Bellbrook School Board passed a non-discrimination statement, but eliminated the LGBTQ plus population from the protection list intentionally. It was not an oversight. Members of the LGBTQ plus community are targeted by politicians like DeSantis with exclusionary and dismissive rhetoric, as well as by violent words that people then act on. DeSantis and others are also limiting what teachers can teach and what students can learn. These limitations can set the nation back by a generation. So pride congregations, welcoming congregations, fabulous colors, we matter. It shouldn't be, but it is a risky endeavor to declare that this is who I am and I am proud of it. I love myself. We all want to be accepted and loved for who we are. Being singled out for discrimination and hate harms people psychologically and physically. The attack on LGBTQ plus rights in Florida and elsewhere in the country is an important reminder of why UUs need to side with love, to be welcoming, to be out, to be proud, and to be an ally. And that was Harvey Milk's legacy, wasn't it? When he was elected to the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, the first openly gay man to hold elected office in California, he told the gay population to come out, be visible. And he was assassinated for it in 1978. But clearly, the more out we can be, the more affirming we can be, the more inclusive we can be, the safer we will all be in the long run. It was June 1969 when a gay bar in New York's Greenwich Village, the Stonewall Inn, was raided by police. These raids were common. But instead of complying with the NYPD, the community fought back. The 5 days of protest and unrest changed things nationally. And these protests happened all over the country then. Stonewall gets the credit, but thank you all the other places that stepped up. And now in June, we celebrate with pride parades all over the country. They are no longer protests, but they do make a statement. I have to say, it took me a while to get there. I just didn't know I encountered many LGBTQ plus people that I knew of. I remember when my first UU church, the Birmingham Unitarian Church, decided to become welcoming in the early 90s. I had little recognition of what it was like to be lesbian or gay, but when BUC had gay people preach from the pulpit, it changed my understanding. One woman said she would go to the movie theater with her girlfriends when she was growing up. Her friends would all be swooning over Cary Grant. She was swooning for Doris Day. Another man from a gay couple talked about what it was like to have a household where one person was vegetarian and the other isn't. Oh, nothing to see here, just like me. My home congregation opened its space for the gay community to gather in the 1970s because such gatherings were risky for gay men. The congregation became one of the first welcoming congregations in the country, although I don't know how many congregations claim that designation. The welcoming program began in 1989, but in those early years, not so very long ago, UUs were not as understanding as you might think. Like the nation, non-gay UUs had misunderstandings, fears, and prejudices. The efforts our congregations took to learn and grow and to become fully inclusive, welcoming, is something to be proud of. And oh, how far we've come in a short time. Not too many years ago, in 2015, gay marriage became legal in this country thanks to a Supreme Court decision from Ohio. That decision was announced during our Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly. They stopped the business of the assembly, they unfurled a rainbow flag from the podium and invited all the gay couples to come on stage. The stage was packed. I still tear up thinking about it. A member of another UU congregation I work with said to me, "I love this church. We're married lesbians and nobody cares." This isn't true in other parts of their life, but I'm so glad it is true in their UU community. This morning, we're going to hear from members of each of the congregations. So I wish you a happy Pride, and we turn it over to Vicki first.
Thank you, Reverend Alice. I first heard of the Welcoming Congregation program from my mother. My former church downstate, her church, completed the certification process, and I remember some of her members' reaction was, "What, aren't we already welcoming? We're already welcoming. Why are we doing this?" And so fast forward several years later, switching careers and then I was a high school teacher. I realized the importance of creating safe spaces for teenagers. And while we had 3 areas that our students as well reported that were unsafe: the hallway, the lunchroom, and particularly the bus. And so and I would hope and was assuming that everybody was like me, making sure that the areas they controlled, primarily your classroom, that's what you're in control of, would make safe spaces. And I would think that the teachers were thinking like me. And as we had meetings, it became kind of apparent that not all of my colleagues were on board with the way I was thinking. And I didn't team teach or anything like that. And you're kind of on an island when you're a teacher. But students would talk about different things. And so I felt it was very important to show extra support. And at some point, our school did start a gay straight alliance club, and I attended and supported that. And I had a student who, this was early in my teaching, probably the 90s, late 90s maybe. He had t-shirts made up that said, "I'm queer and I'm here." Or was it, "I'm here and I'm queer"? It might have been that one. Anyways, cobwebs. It's been a lot of years. and not only did he have one printed up for himself, but he had several printed up, and all his friends bought them. And it was just really a wonderful thing to see all these kids brave enough to support their friend and to wear the t-shirts. And they I think he sold them for $10. So I would see the courage of these young people. And then fast forward again to COVID, when I started to spend a lot of time on Zoom with UUA folks, and I was around on Zoom a lot more diversity, and I realized how important it was to name who we're welcoming. And so it became very important. And so that's where I decided it's time to step forward and do this. And so we had a committee of 3 people, and we laid out our plans. And our first event actually was before we decided that about the program. And it was participation. A guy I taught with, his daughter started a gay pride march and a thing at the park. And he took me aside at school and said, you know, you're the only church that showed up. And he said, I love anyone that loves my kids and wants to help and support my kids. And so, and I saw how important it was. And so then when that was our first event. And then we started a educational program. And then we met and we did different activities, and you know, we I think learned a lot in the process. And not only is it important to be welcoming, but to actually affirm who it is you're welcoming. And I think that's where a lot of churches go wrong. I read an account of a person who had been through the conversion program as a teenager, and was very hurt and damaged over this. And they went to a church that was acted like a welcoming church. All the literature he read, went there and really enjoyed the service. And afterwards, a lady turned around and greeted this person warmly. And they said, "Are you welcoming congregation?" And the lady responded, "Yes, we are." And then this person said, "Okay, so I'm gay and I have a partner. Would my partner be welcome?" And then the person changed their tone and said, "Well, we're welcoming, but we would hope you would change. We would hope you would see the light." And immediately this person, their hopes were all dashed, and the tears started flowing. And then the lady they were talking to, her tears started flowing, and she said, "Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Let me introduce you to the minister." And then so the person had a conversation with the minister afterwards, and the minister said kind of the same thing. And then he ended up crying as well and said, "Well, you know, maybe I can change my mind." So the minister was saying, maybe I can change my mind. And so this person decided to go again. And I just admire really the courage, but it just doesn't, it shouldn't be that hard to be affirming. And so to be welcoming is one thing. And I did look up I wanted to know a Bible passage about welcoming congregations, and I got pointed to this, Hebrews 10:24-25. "And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." I mean, I'm good until the day drawing near thing. But I guess you could interpret that different ways. But so if you read into that, that would be some good advice, and to not only be welcoming, but to be affirming. And I just think it's very important to say who it is we're welcoming, so that there's no doubt. that this is a safe space. And so we completed our certification and we have done our renewal last year. So we've been certified for 2 years and we're working on our renewal again for this year. And I do understand why there's a renewal process every year, because you don't just stop. You know, you just don't stop. You keep on with your practices. And and I know there was a lot of good guidance that came from the UUA as well. And I just have one little quick thing to say, and then I'll wrap it up. At our Pride picnic last Sunday, I chatted with some young people and I told them I was going to be asked to speak on this, and I recognized the one girl from high school and the other person I didn't know. And this person, I asked them, do you have any things where you felt, unsupported? And this person spoke up and they said, yes. In gym class, I was told I didn't look enough like a boy, and so I needed some balls. So all the kids would throw balls at me really hard and hit me in the face. And the teacher didn't do anything about it. And so they went to the principal, and I guess it was poo-pooed. And then it kept on happening. So then they went to their parent, and their parent came and had a meeting. And then the people were called in that were participating in this awful behavior. And then it got worse. And so nothing happened. And it just, the throwing balls got worse. And so I said, oh, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. That is so wrong. And then they said, well, 7th grade gym didn't last forever. And that just really, it was like, that hurt my heart that had to happen to this young person. And it hurt my heart that that's how they had to get through it, realizing this isn't going to last forever, when it shouldn't have happened at all. And there shouldn't have been a duration period for it to last. It should have been shut down so immediately when it happened in the classroom. And, so it's just what people have to go through to be themselves. And so that's why I think it's so important to model and to be active and supportive and affirmative. So, and thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Vicki. And now we'll have Audrey from Petoskey.
Good morning, beloveds. How are you? It's wonderful to be here with you on this Pride Sunday. We've had a fascinating day yesterday in our town, as I mentioned in Joys and Concerns. But we started in being a welcoming congregation about, 5 years ago. There was an incident in our town where people had a pride flag flying at their home. And someone took the flag down, stomped it on the ground, lit it on fire, and then urinated on it. And that set off the gay community. They like many other oppressed peoples, they picked that up and they carried it as their banner. And so now we celebrate Pride in July on the anniversary of that incident. And actually, we're kind of hangers on, which is unfortunate, but we're a very small group and don't have a lot of power that way. So the gay community themselves sponsors this annual gay parade, and we attend and we wave our flags and we wear our colors, and it's good. But we realized we really had to do more than that. So we have a quarterly offering, and one quarter we decided that the money from the quarterly offering would go to the library to purchase books dealing with LGBTQIA+ issues. And we raised about $500 and we bought a bunch of books for the library. And at that panel discussion that I was telling you about last night, one young woman said, I had no support in my family. I had no support in school. I didn't know where to go for information. I went to the library and they had the books that showed me the way and gave me the strength. So, man, I felt really good about that. And I really want to thank our congregation. I think we probably felt a little unsure about welcoming in the beginning, but we're not anymore. And we're happy for that. We're happy for the exposure and we're happy to take part. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Audrey. And now we'll turn to Marquette with Christy Jean.
Hi, good morning. I'm Christy. I'm from the Marquette UU, and we're a welcoming congregation. And I just came out publicly and started living full-time as a transgender woman about a year ago. I've known this about myself since an early age and later found out there were others in the world like me when I was 14. Although I did come out to a few people starting in my 20s, it was only a year ago at the age of 62 that I felt I could openly be who I am. My life and those around me have been very difficult at times because of this. And sometimes I still don't know how I was able to keep myself together for so long. My story is not unusual. A lot of us LGBTQ folks come out later in life, but there is another common story for LGBTQ folks, especially transgender folks. That's the story of those who can't find it possible to live any other way than authentically themselves at an earlier age. The folks who transition early in life and take whatever life and society dishes out to them. These are typically stories of extreme hardship, of people facing discrimination head on and losing jobs, family, friends, healthcare, and even their homes just for being who they are. One such friend of mine is Marissa Wolf. She has lived her authentic self since 2009 and has suffered many of the hardships I've listed. But she is a tenaciously strong woman. She's raised her daughter, and she's been a strong advocate for LGBTQ rights in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But her story goes beyond the Upper Peninsula. Marissa was involved in a court case where the local electrologist would not perform hair removal on her because she was a transgender woman. The electrologist stating serving Marissa was against her religious beliefs. This case and a similar one made it all the way to Michigan Supreme Court. And in 2022, the court ruled that sexual orientation is a protected class under the civil rights law, delivering a landmark win for LGBTQ rights. The Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act protects against discrimination based on religion, race, color, national origin, age, sex, height, weight, familial status, and marital status. This decision enshrines protections against discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation into law. Every LGBTQ person in the state of Michigan owes much to Marissa for standing up to injustice and prevailing and making it a positive change for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. I just want to wrap this up with a few words from the things that I've heard and with maybe a message of hope. I hear hope from all the congregations and the outpouring of support for the community, especially in an era where pushback is really hard. Not only is that Supreme Court decision that Christy talked about a win, but in Tennessee, where they had decided to ban drag shows, there's a court injunction against that ban, saying that it's an impingement on free speech. And I think that we can certainly take pride in the safe spaces for everyone. And I love what Vicki said about, I want everyone to care about my kids. if we can just think about, I want everyone to care about the kids. I want everyone to care about each other. I think we will go a long way. The song you're about to hear is by Gloria Gaynor, and she is not gay, but her anthem has a long association with the LGBTQ plus community around all kinds of struggles that people have faced, and especially around the AIDS crisis. So Beyond Gay Communities, I Will Survive has become a global anthem for those who have felt politically oppressed, physically challenged, or otherwise pushed to society's margins. That includes survivors of domestic abuse for whom Gloria Gaynor herself has become a spokesperson.